Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of DigiChem Dialogues. I'm your host, Jay Bhatia, founder and CEO of Agilis. Agilis is a leading provider of digital customer engagement solutions for the chemical industry. At DigiChem Dialogues, our aim is to bring experts and practitioners in digitalization space from within the chemical industry. Our goal is to promote best practices in digital transformation so that everyone can benefit. Today, we have a very accomplished professional in this space, Constantyn Chalitsios, Chief Digital Officer of Westlake Corporation, a $15 billion company, global manufacturer based in Houston. Welcome, Constantyn.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jay.
Let me share a little bit of introduction of Constantyn before he himself introduces himself. So Constantyn has over 30 years of experience in AI, R&D, engineering, manufacturing, and supply chain. He has a deep experience in diverse industries in leveraging digital platforms to reshape technology, infrastructure, and organizational models. Constantyn holds master's degree in electronics and robotics and electromagnetics from Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands. He also holds MBA in finance from Rice University. And one surprising fact, which I was blown away when I learned that, he holds 9 patents in nuclear physics applications. I'm simply flabbergasted how one person can accomplish so much in one life. So, Constantyn, once again, welcome to the program. And thank you for making time from your busy schedule. We are honored to have you.
Thank you again.
So my first question is, you have an impressive background in driving technology-driven transformations in the chemical and oil and gas industries. Can you give us a few highlights of your career?
Yeah, my career spans more than 30 years, obviously, right? And the most of the part was in the oil and gas space. And there are many, I would say many highlights, but I will highlight a few of them which are related to the topic of today, right? And so when we think about digital transformation, a couple of decades ago already, for one of the largest upstream companies, when I worked for them, I was working on an instrumentation to really determine where oil and gas reserves are located and how to extract those optimally. And to do that, you had to really develop a platform on the instrumentation that was a combination of many engineering principles, such as mechanical, electronics, but also sensor technology, signal processing, algorithm development, and bring this all together as a single engineered platform to really extract the information from the subsurface and transmit this to the surface that then geologists and petrophysicists could utilize to build their models to figure out, where the oil and gas reserves exactly are and how to extract those in a manner that you maximize the depletion of the reservoir. And that was a very interesting introduction to what I call digital transformation, where really we took, in the past, analog signals that we digitized locally and then transmit those to the surface digitally with through the medium, and then at the surface using all type of computer hardware and again algorithms and software to understand what the meaning of the data was, right? So this is before the term digital transformation was kind of coined by the marketeers in our world. So that's one highlight. And I would say another one that also home to petrochemicals. So with another upstream large company where I was working in specialty chemicals. This was using this type of algorithms that were developed to understand how you can improve logistics of moving specialty chemicals to the locations where you have to deploy those, right? So I'm pretty proud of that one, where not that I'm a logistic expert, but to use really mathematics to figure out how to optimize a logistics network, right? In terms of creating a hub and spoke model, maximizing the footprint and minimize the distribution points, and hence reducing really the inventory, which really has a big impact on the balance sheet of the company. And that was also a very interesting highlight, I would say. I'm stop here because there's many of them. I just picked two out, right?
No, that's quite fascinating,
Yeah.
using the technology to detect the oil and gas reserves and getting the chemical products at the right destination. This is the the real and pertinent challenge that both the industries have. So, out of your many roles in multiple industries, which one was your favorite role and why?
Tough question. Because, I grew up first in R&D, then I went to operations, and then when I got out of operations, I got back into engineering for a long time. Then I joined supply chain. I did procurement. Then I led manufacturing, and even I was in sales for a little bit, right? So I got a lot of roles around the value chain of the company or an enterprise. But I would say, in answer to your question, what attracts me are roles that make innovation happen. And there could be any of these roles where you are open and be supportive of allowing innovation to happen. Right. So it's not necessary that I want to have one of these specific roles, but I think in my current role, I am a promoter of innovation. And so this type of role is for me the culmination of my career, where I bring all the pieces together and can actually intelligently talk about the areas within the value chain of an enterprise to promote innovation in those areas.
Yeah, yeah. Great, fantastic. And I read about your bio in your bio that you've been an entrepreneur too. You have launched like two or three companies.
Yeah, I did three companies. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Tell us.
Now,
I
they were
was
not all successful, by the way, right? So I'll be honest too.
no, but say, tell us more about your entrepreneurial journey, because I think that puts the things in context, that how
Yeah.
you are always finding either innovative role or innovation within a role to pursue something different, and because you are an entrepreneur at heart. So tell us about your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. So during my MBA training at Rice University, I participated quite often in the entrepreneur program, which is really strong at Rice. And they have a lot of, every year they have a big program, you can win a big prize, to bring all these startups together and IDs. And it really attracted me. It was a great experience. When I got out of it, I went back to my working for one of the global companies. That led actually to me going into supply chain, by the way, right? So I learned a lot of supply chain because I wanted to get out of engineering. But during those roles, I said, I'm not leveraging what I've learned truly in MBA, right? And there's a lot of people that get an MBA, right? But they're not becoming an entrepreneur. And so it took a couple of years for me to realize that I got this MBA, I got to really use it. That means I need to get out of the corporate world and go stand on my own feet. And I got to a point, and I learned this also during training. I said, it kind of follows the bathtub curve, right? Where in the beginning, you have a lot of entrepreneurs, they're young, they try. If it doesn't work, it's okay. They go move in back with their parents, right? And then you have the bottom of the bathtub where, okay, an established person that has family and has requirements, financial requirements to maintain, doesn't stick their neck out to try something, right? It's difficult. And then you went towards the end, you get the more experienced people that have a network, they're financially independent, and they actually know something to really go do it without risking too much, right? So I was fitting in this side. And when I realized that, I said, it's okay for me to go stand on my own feet. And so I left corporate world and I learned everything about the financing side, right? The private equity world, the venture capitalist, the accelerators, the incubator, the family offices, a whole new world out there that I didn't know about. But when I approached them and explained who I was and what my ideas were, I had to be in sales myself, right? I was able actually to raise capital and start companies. And that was a really interesting experience.
And then these three companies were sequential, right? I mean, how many?
Yeah, it was sequential. And by the way, they were all in digital transformation in a sense, right? Because by that time, I realized that to do digital transformation in a global corporation is very difficult, right? There's a lot of red tape, and it takes a while to get there because it's like you're an aircraft carrier, right? It doesn't turn right away. It takes a lot of work to make the turn. And if you want to be nimble in a certain area, I was like, hey, as an entrepreneur, I can do that. And so one of the companies was focused on IoT applications for production wells, and that was actually well received. Let's put it this way.
Great. Can you elaborate on your current role at Westlake?
Yeah, sure. I call myself sometimes the chief evangelist, and the reason why I'm saying that is because every company has a kind of corporate or there is a culture, right? And the culture can sometimes or often depends what level is, right? Be a barrier for change. And so it's really important to evangelize ideas of innovation, and that requires you to be really true to the core of the message that you are delivering. And even in my role as the chief digital officer within Westlake, my role really is to talk about how the future could be, and how we can get there by doing a few things. I said we got to take the first step. It doesn't mean we got to take a million steps, but take the first step. And if you can take the first step, you most likely will take the second step too. So a lot of my time is spent on communicating this message of this painting this picture of the future from the level of the CEO all the way down to the frontline worker.
Right, yeah. So what does the digital roadmap look like at Westlake? Whatever you can share, I mean, because you're covering all the functions, not just the commercial part.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, last week I was at one of the Gartner conferences, and I gave a similar talk on the digital roadmap for Westlake. And we were focused on really smart manufacturing. We talked a little about that. But if we look within Westlake, yes, we're covering all parts of the value chain of the enterprise. So predominantly, of course, procurement, supply chain, logistics, manufacturing. But also we're looking at how can we improve legal, HR, and other functional departments of the company. And if we look at our digital transformation journey, this is truly defined by the business, and it revolves around three main pillars. The first one is how do we enhance our customer experience? That's a very big one for us because with no customers, you have no company, right? It's very simple. And then that requires on the inside, you have to do something, right? And so we talk about often, how do we enhance our operational excellence? So there's all the internal processes within the company. And then the third one is about, and it's more generic, but it's about how do we improve corporate productivity with digital tools, right? So there are three main pillars. And they define for us the roadmap that we have set for the next 5 to 10 years within our organization. And I know there's a very long roadmap, but we have focused on the first few years because it's about how can we be practical in executing and demonstrating that we are moving the needle in terms of digital transformation. Within this roadmap, we have projects in those areas, right? Manufacturing, procurement, and so forth. The projects are owned by the business. They all have a business case in what there are two sets of KPIs. The first set of KPIs is all about the application or the product that we need to build to deliver to the business, where they can improve a process or whatever it is that they need to solve a problem, right? And the second set of KPIs are leading indicators in terms of how we financially improve the position of the company using this application. And this is critical because if you don't have these two sets of KPIs, then you really don't know if you are successful with your digital application that you have deployed. So that's really critical. So we don't really boil the ocean in terms of like, okay, let's go build a data lake and then hope for the best and then go build an application on that. It's really the other way around, where we say there is a challenge in, let's say, in procurement. And we want to optimize the market baskets of goods in category management. So maybe there is an AI tool that can do that, or maybe we develop that AI tool and improve and basically augment the category managers to accelerate cleaning up the market baskets, and that will then have a result for how we quote these baskets with our suppliers to get better pricing, as an example, right? Or it could well be that we're looking at one of our steam cracking furnaces, and we look at the feed for the burners, and we look at how the burners are being run, and we see inhomogeneous heat flux in the heat box, and we say we got to make this more homogeneous because then we can improve the life of the furnace, right? So and so these are all very unique examples that are across the entire spectrum of our company.
Right. I think it's so. In our conversations with customers, and quite often they are a global producer or distributors, one of the key challenges they face is like where to start your digital journey, especially when it comes to the commercial aspects. So in your experience, what are some practical approaches on or starting strategies for mapping out your digital journey if you're a global player in the industry?
Yeah, if you start, that is, then that's okay. You can start, right? If you have not really thought about it, but I think most companies have already, right? And it often, the question is being asked to the IT group, right? Typically, so a CIO may have this role or have appointed somebody under the CIO to start looking into it, because it starts typically with, okay, where is our a system of records, right? And it's typically the ERP system within a company. And therein lies a lot of data, and you could look at that as, okay, this is part of digital, right? And then when you think from, okay, we got to make sure we can take a customer order in the ERP system and flow it through all the way to make sure that at the end, when we deliver, that we also, can invoice the customer and get paid for what we made. Right. So typically that process is a first step in digital journey where there's connections with suppliers and customers and manufacturing typically, and other processes that, how do you want to digitize that so we don't have only spreadsheets with Microsoft and paperwork. So you want to start digitizing that. And that's really a good start. Then there is not all the data. I always talk about the constellation of data, right? And ERP data or data, depends how you want to pronounce it, right? Is planet Jupiter in the constellation. But there are other planets in this constellation, right? You have OT side, because we're a manufacturing company, right? So we have a lot of data in the OT side. And we have data sitting in paper binders with the chemical engineers in the labs. We have data sitting in the LIMS system. We have data sitting on a C drive on a computer that's not connected to anything, right? And the list goes on. There's data sitting in the cloud, and with suppliers, and so forth. So there is a constellation of data, and it's not a good idea to move all this data in a data lake at once because it's very costly, right? What's more important is to create which Gartner calls this data fabric, where leave the data where it is, but make it accessible. Build the proper data pipelines, but focus on the business case. That once you have built something, so you have your playbook defined, your architecture. It doesn't mean that you have to build this entire thing first and then go do. It's better to have the definition of the architecture that allows you to be scalable in this data architecture, and to be also a little bit nimble, because you don't want all this technical debt, but you have a platform now on which you can build a business case. And then you can demonstrate to the company that, look, we have moved the needle. We built an application that actually provides economic benefits to the company, and it creates appetite for more, right? So that's really how you need to start. And that's how we have started a couple of years back, and it's very successful.
Right. Now you are hitting the head of the nail. Like, data is, first you need to organize your data, or at least make it accessible, and then build applications on top of it. If you do it other way around, then it's going to be problematic.
Yeah, and maybe one thing is that accessible is one thing, and then you have to look at the data fidelity, right? It's accessible, but the data is worthless, then it's not going to do anything either, right? That's why it's important to understand from the business, like, what is really the need to have the challenges that they're trying to solve or improve, and you work backwards from that. And that will define what the optimization is that you need to do on the process. And that will also define what data you need and what the quality of the data needs to be, and so forth, right? Because you may find out you don't have the data. And then you have to go do something, right? Okay.
Very, very interesting. And sorry, we are not giving you a break. A constant bombardment of questions. So just to the listeners, audience, please feel free to drop your questions on the chat line, and we will leave 10-15 minutes for Constantyn to address your questions. So moving on, what are some of the lessons learned from successful or not so successful initiatives and implementations in the digital transformation?
And that's a really important question, right? And as we are going to our budget cycle here, right, we ask that question ourselves too, right? Why wasn't it not? I mean, why was it not successful? Right? Your question basically, and why was successful, so we can adjust for 2025 better. Yeah, that's a really important question, and I would say not so successful stems from the reason that not all stakeholders are aligned to the business case. And there may be economic value, however, misalignment of goals can result in not getting everyone on board to get buy-in, right? And that's very typical, where you see an opportunity of improvement, but to be really successful, it is critical that it is understood by the organization that there is executive sponsorship all the way from the CEO down, right? That needs to be very visible, the message. There has to be business ownership. If that does not exist, then you're not going to be successful. Then also, you will have to have business resources available to work on your project. And what I mean with that is, you need the subject matter experts. Let's say you want to build a B2B platform. And so you need somebody from sales and somebody from marketing in the business to be available to help you out building a proper B2B platform. Because they own the data, they own the customers, and they have to be vested in this particular project. And that means that we also have to share common goals. So the technology group the suppliers involved, and these business leads, they have to have the same goals. And then lastly, I would say continuously transparent communication on progress. So when you do those things, you'll be very successful in no matter what the digital transformation project is. But if you miss some of these requirements, then it's going to be really hard. It doesn't matter really what it is, whether it's building a platform, building an AI algorithm for furnace, building an AI algorithm for logistics optimization, building doing chemical formulation in silicon. I mean, all these things are not going to be successful when you don't have these requirements in place.
Right. Yep. Thank you. I think you already answered my next question in that. So, I mean, you're right on that, a lot of the transformation projects, be it digital or analog, fail quite often because of not having a good organizational alignment. And, as we say that what we bring as a software provider is tools, but in order for project to be successful, there should be a pretty good alignment of people, processes, and the tools. So, and it almost always starts with the business objective. What do you want to accomplish? And the stakeholder engagement is extremely critical.
Yeah. Now, I would say also, so when you go out there, right, it is important, like I said earlier, the chief evangelist, right? Go into the organization, because there are what I call digital mavericks out there. You just have to find them. And that requires that you go into the organization. And you'll find that when you go into the business organizations or the other functional departments and you query them, you'll see there's people that say, hey, they're ready for change and they want to use some of the tools. And once you find them, you need to equip them. You need to bring them under your wings and help them, because they're going to actually amplify your message, and they're going to be part of doing some of these projects. So it's not necessarily you have to hire more people. You have to find them and then equip them so they can actually be part of you in a sense and implement. And that works really well. So that's really important to find those digital mavericks in your organizations, because they are what I call the doers of implementation.
Right. We call them early adopters. So we look for early adopters in customers, and kind of you have to do the same thing internally in your organization. So, all right, changing gears, let's talk about the hot topic. Everyone talks about AI, and the transformation. AI is no longer a buzzword. It has the transformation power. And what do you think? What are your views on where would the transformation happen most within the chemical industry with the use of AI? And then you're the, I would say, ideal person to ask, because you oversee so many areas: R&D, manufacturing, supply chain, customer engagement. What are your views where AI could contribute the most in chemical industry?
Yeah, so it's a very big question, right? And
you might need 2 more episodes for that.
Yeah, it will take a little time to answer, but I would try to be brief, of course. But I'll start with, like I said, last week I was at Gartner and I saw Jensen Huang, NVIDIA CEO, and I'm sitting up front, so I could actually, kind of really see him. Pretty down-to-earth guy. And he made a couple of really good comments. And one comment is a short comment I want to share on this video call here, is he just said, like, AI is there to use, so please use it, right? And that grounds the point that it doesn't go away. It is there, and use it. Now, okay, having said that, we got to really understand how to use it, right? Because just to use it is not enough. We have come down the hype cycle of AI, and specifically generative AI, right? A subset of AI. A lot of hype around there. Microsoft has a lot of challenges promoting their Copilot product, right? In terms of value creation. So that comes back to the point I'm raising here the entire time on the call, is there has to be a business case. There have to be people in your company that says, not only people, there have to be a unit that says, I think generative AI here works. It makes sense. And they're willing to adopt, to do a POC. And and then if the POC is successful, then we'll go further and say, well, let's do a pilot, and maybe we'll develop an application that actually bring economic benefits to the company, right? So we're in this trough, right? We wake up and said, oh, the value that was promised to us is not materializing. Okay, we got to go back to the drawing board and really go back to the first principles. And when I say the first principle of physics, the law of physics is still governing this world. It's not generative AI. And so, yes, AI is not going away. It is very pervasive. And I would say, if you haven't explored this, but most people have in a sense, right? Because you have email, and whether you know it or not, you have a spam protector in your email that's based on AI technology, which is called supervised machine learning, right? Because you got to keep labeling, this is spam, this is not spam. And so in the future, you don't get the email of the person that you don't want to get an email from, right? So supervised machine learning is still the biggest area within AI that's being deployed super successful. And that would be an area that I would, if you have never deployed AI, that's an area where you have to focus on. Yes, the generative AI tools are becoming better, but they're based on the data that you feed it, right? And not just the data that you feed it. You have to think about a couple of things. First of all, you have to be careful, right? Don't use ChatGPT as an example. From a company perspective, you want to protect your intellectual property. So you don't want to be in a public generative AI application. Second, within your company firewall, within your tenant, you want to make sure that not everybody can see all the data. So you have to have some form of authentication to assure confidentiality. And third, which is very pervasive in Europe and is coming to the United States as well, you do not want to violate the Data Privacy Act. That is really important. So those three are really critical. And then, of course, then the fourth is about, okay, we want to get responses that make sense, because this whole topic of hallucination comes to mind, right? I have a different term for it. Hallucination means creativity, and creativity can work for certain areas, but will not work for other areas, right? Because it drives you the wrong direction. So that means that the constructs within the AI domain, in this generative AI domain, they have to be updated to a matter that the responses make sense. So in areas of chemicals, back to your question, for example, and I know others have done this already, right? And we're on the same bandwagon. Can we do formulation in silicon? And the answer is yes, right? We take all the lab experiments that we have done for the last 30 years, we digitize all this information. And when we get customer requests coming in for, hey, we like this material from you, but there's an ingredient in here in this composition that we don't like, but can you replace it with something else, but maintaining the same material properties? We can do that in silicon now, right? So that is definitely an area that is exponential growing. But for a company like Westlake, where we make base chemicals that we serve to a lot of industries in the world. It's not that so much that we invent every time a new molecule. So for us, it's a kind of limited space, but we have it, right? For us, it's more important to look at what can we do in understanding better our customers. So customers are, just go back to your commercial question you had earlier. They're on a platform, they interact with us, they click all here, but they never buy this product. Why is that? So we want to extract customer intimacy using AI and generative AI. And I've seen in the industry that there are really two areas where generative AI is going to play a big role. Actually, it's three, but I mentioned, why not? I mentioned all three of them, right? It is in the procurement space. It's in the sales space. And it's in the customer service space. And those three spaces are very ripe and for generative AI. Back to chemicals, right? AI, in traditional AI, supervised, reinforced machine learning, and so forth, they have been applied already. It's not new, it's been there. I would even go a step further, saying that when you go into your manufacturing plants, we do continuous manufacturing. This is process manufacturing, it's process engineering, right? It's a process that we have to continuous process that we have to control, and for decades we are already doing that, right? We're simply saying, we have all our PID loops in place already, right? To control the processes through a DCS system. And then superimposed on that, we have software, which is an advanced process controller. And even top on that, we can have what we call real-time optimization controllers, which is a form of AI in a sense, right? And there are, not to mention the names of the suppliers we work with, right? But this has been around for a long time. And there are challenges with that, right? So AI in the chemical industry is there. Now, especially in manufacturing, I would say. Now, it has an opportunity in another area. And our peer industries are working on that also, which is, the dirty word of digital twin, because it has been overused, right? And the value of digital twins, it's questionable, but if it's done correctly, the value is there. The combination of digital twin and generative AI is actually a really great combination, where you could create, let's say, within a chemical plant, you create a 3D walkthrough image of a unit, and you can use that to train operators. And as they walk through the unit, there is generative AI that's used to educate the employee that's using the digital twin to learn how to turn valves and why the reason that's needed and what to check and push buttons, right? So that combination is very strong. And so there's many examples, right? So this is another example. So I think within the chemical industry, there is lots of opportunities. So we have to think about not just only the commercials and the IT side. We have to really think about operations on the OT side, where AI has a big footprint, right? So I hope that that gives you a good kind of perspective. Maybe one more thing that I want to add to that is, it is really critical, and it goes back to earlier, that you create that data architecture, right? Because it's really important that's done. The link between OT and IT is really important. Obviously, when chemical manufacturing plants, you have to protect them from cybersecurity. So obviously there are double firewalls. Nothing needs to go in there. They probably have the local on-prem servers. You have the process network and the business network. They're all separated, and there's for very logical reasons that's done, right? But the data that exists in these plants is important, that you need to marry with the other data, and that creates. So that data architecture is really critical to understand that, how you do that, to be successful in the deployment of AI.
Yep. And having launched some AI solutions with another global player in partnership with them, this is what we learned, that data architecture is very critical, and especially large corporations like Westlake, you want to make sure that your AI agent is not accessing, putting that firewall and then preventing that accidental leak is extremely critical. And the second area that you touched upon, like controlling the creativity, because when it comes to the chemistry or the chemical data, there is no scope for creativity. This is all science-based. So most of these AI agents, when they don't find the answer, they start getting creative and making their own answer. The technical term is hallucination. So how do you prevent that hallucination? Because your customers are going to make their formulations or make their manufacturing or applications based on your advice. So you also don't want to misguide them, or in the worst case, create some liability for the company by putting out a solution that gives their own creative answers.
Yeah, that's true, right? And that's why it's important to think about the construct, right? Really how you use generative AI, right? So there's, okay, yeah, you have your foundation model from OpenAI. You can use that, but it's insufficient. It's not right? Because it's only trained on whatever they train it on, where they spent billions of dollars on. You can create your own LLM in-house as well, but you could, right? But you have to sustain it, it has to be updated. It's not cheap to do that. But it's really important that you create this retrieval augmented generation, right? This RAG-based model in-house, that you also create what's called an industrial graph. So it's important to understand how data is related, right? So this ontology is really critical to create. So that you can create this industrial knowledge graph, right? So creating in a sense, creating a semantic layer takes time. It's costly. But it is needed if you want to get better responses, right? And I think what I've seen is in the industry, right? You can see what's happening in the public domain, right? So RAG-based models are there. Now we have Graph RAG, and Microsoft just released their O1 model, right, from OpenAI that can actually do calculations a lot better. So there's a lot accelerating in this field, right? And that's why it's so important to say, well, before you buy into a supplier for some kind of whatever platform, right? Keep an open mind that don't go all in. Because you own technical debt. A lot of the stuff is changing super fast. Go back to the first principle, the law of physics. It's really critical. Right. By the way, I hope in one day that we get to the quantum computing, so there's enough qubits that we can have, so we can actually really formulate the molecule a lot better and actually understand the molecule much better and actually design new molecules using quantum computing. One day we'll get that.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. That day is not that far off.
No.
Constantyn, thank you very much. This has been very exciting, interesting discussion. We are making you talk. Let me change the topic. One last question, and this is a personal one, but I'll make sure that is not too intrusive. What do you do in your spare time, if you have one? I mean, what are you passionate about in your personal life?
Yeah, we spoke about that, right? I love my work a lot, right? What I do, but similarly, I have a similar passion to rock climbing, and for the last 40 years, I've been very busy with rock climbing all over the world, and I do a lot of that. So I'm very passionate. Of course, in Houston, there's no cliffs to climb, right? So I travel a lot, there's a couple of rock gyms that did not exist, 40 years ago, by the way. So I had to really travel to go outside climbing. But now, there's a lot of plastic around the world you can climb on. But yeah, it's just, that's my passion. That's what I do. I'm pretty good still. That could be a whole topic in itself. I'm a member of the American Alpine Club, very active there too. They're based in Golden, Colorado. That's my other passion.
That's fascinating. I wonder how you find time for doing that, but that's pretty interesting. So we are at about time. Let's take a couple of questions from the audience. So I have a couple of questions here. So number one, how can I push or influence my workforce to adopt digital solutions we have implemented already? Because adoption is the key challenge particularly in large organizations.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. What we did was we made sure when we started to build the application, right, we involved our stakeholders from day one. Following an agile methodology. So we had, depending on what the size of the scope of the project was, either 2 or 3 week sprints. And really in the first sprints, the stakeholders are already there. So they part of solving the problem, coming up with a solution, a digital solution. Right? Now, when the solution is already in place and you weren't part of that, and I have some of those here in this company too, that there is no adoption, that's difficult, right? Because they were not part of creating this problem, the solution, and they're unwilling to adopt it. That's a different problem, right? So now you have to do kind of damage control. But before you do that, you have to look at whatever was created before your time and say, has this still value? Is this really what we need?
Right.
And so then it really goes back to the customer, right? The internal customer, to ask that question and say, why are we not using this? Where is there truly value or not? And this go back to the business case, right? Why in the first place was this created? But ask your stakeholders. That is the critical part. And in addition, what we did was we brought in a professional communication manager and a change agent that's on staff. And this person is involved with the stakeholders all the time to make sure that you do proper change management and you do proper communication. So this would be my response to this question.
Great. Thanks. We have one more question. What was your starting point for digitalization of sales and marketing enablement? Any recommended strategies in this area?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, there's a lot of work there still ongoing here, but it's a great area, right? Start with interviewing the sales organization. Let's start with sales. You learn a lot in how they actually sell. And if you're not familiar with the sales process, and you may be familiar with the sales process, but still interview the individuals. Go to salesperson, the region manager, and so forth. The whole structure, right? All the way to the VP of sales. Understand truly how they sell. Ask questions about the customers they sell to, the information they look up to equip themselves to sell, and the processes they use when they talk to customers, incumbent customers and prospects, right? Really understand the process. That's the first thing you got to do. It's all about listen and learn and ask questions to really understand that process. That's the first thing, because I can assure you that, because within our company at least, right, but also I've seen in other industries, similar chemical companies, sales is doing a lot of mundane activities that a salesperson does not want to do. A salesperson loves to talk. They don't like to write things down. They don't like to look things up. They want to be in front of a customer all the time. They have a big carrot, which is the bonus, right? Making a deal. So how do you equip the salesperson with some digital tools so that he can maximize face time with customers, and not only maximizing, but maximizing face time with quality information, right? So quality face time. That means focus on, learn what it is that they really need, develop then a platform that allows them to have quality time with their customers. And then you can think further, like if your sales guys or sales ladies doing a milk run, they go first to customer A, customer B, customer C. When they get out of bed, how about having some kind of application when they wake up that says, "Hey, salesperson, good morning. Today you need to go to customer B, and then you go to customer Z. And by the way, here are the two topics you're going to talk about. Have a nice day." All right? That'd be great. So that's kind of where this is going. So think about it.
Great. Yeah. And then in fact, with with your digital shadow, they can also keep checking what your customer is doing on other social media platform and gives you an update. Hey, today is Constantyn's birthday. Don't forget to wish him. By the way, happy birthday. So,
Good question.
Great. Last question. I think we are about time. So this person asking, we don't have a dedicated digital team. So how do we approach execution? What should someone do within the organization, or should we look for external help like a consulting services?
Another really good question, right? Yeah. So that's a very important question. It depends on the appetite within the company, but I'll give some insight. So we have a dedicated team here, department, which before I go into that, think about this. This landscape of suppliers out there is vast, and this is only growing exponential, right? And it's because our hyperscalers, they provide all the tools to somebody that's entrepreneurial that said, okay, I have a great idea and I'll put a company together really fast. I get some money from private equity and I'm going to knock on doors. Right. So the landscape is inundated with suppliers. So what is really critical is on the inside within your enterprise that you have core competency. You need to have knowledge in-house so that you avoid the stereotypical concept of the health blind leading the blind, meaning the health blind in the inside, the blind on the outside. Because suppliers don't know your company, but they will sell you, right? So you will need some people on the inside that are dedicated. And so then it comes down to the enterprise organization that says, okay, are we willing? We want to do this transformation. We want to get on the AI bandwagon. What do we do? Shall we hire some people? Or shall we go to a consulting firm? Or is it both? Either way, it is critical that in-house you build up this core competency. And it doesn't mean you need 100 people to know that, but you need a few people for sure to know this landscape to be successful. Because there's various areas that you have to execute properly to be successful. Now, you can say, okay, so what I'm trying to say is you need a few people on the inside. Maybe you can find those digital mavericks that you can convert them into your citizen data analyst, your citizen data scientist. You have to have one lead that's going to lead it for the company, and that they work together. Maybe that's a model. And then you go out and find a few consulting firms, but you have to be very careful because consulting firms, they'll leave you a PowerPoint presentation and they're not going to execute, right? So you have to be very careful who you bring in. And that goes back to what I said earlier. Define internally with your internal stakeholders the business case very clearly and crisp. Then go out, find some consulting firms. Now you can say, well, I don't have time for that. I need consulting firm to come in to do the business case. You could do that too, but you be very careful. You can bring one of the big fours in. They'll tell you there is a $500 million, and they haven't spoken really with the business, right? So you have to be very careful. So buyer beware, always there. My advice is to build some core competency in-house and follow a kind of hybrid model. Pick out a proper supplier. And I tend to go with the hyperscalers because I ask 3 questions typically. If you go with small supplier, you have to ask the question, are you going to be around in the next 10 years? That's the first question I ask. Especially when they're owned by private equity, because they may sell them off. The founder may leave. The mantra, the red line of the company is going to change. It's not going to be there anymore, right? So that's an important question. Number 2 is, can they scale the solution with you? When you start small, can they go big, right? They may not have the bandwidth. And number 3, what is the SLAs they're going to provide you, right? Can they also scale on that? Because you have an application, and if they are, every so often there's challenges with that, and they have to come with new releases, and they can't keep up with you. That's a big problem, right? So those are 3 important questions that you have to ask, So that's important to go after the range of suppliers, right? And you'll see that, yes, there are the large hyperscalers that you need to do business with, right? Because they're stable. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's some smaller ones. And you could still try this, which I do too, by the way, right? I focus on a few because it's important, knowing from my entrepreneur world, right? Is that, let's go full circle here, because they're nimble. And if they have some tools that are good that you want to try, because you want to do small POC, that you don't spend a lot of money, but you build up very fast credibility in the organization. And then you decide, okay, what do we do with this? This is great. How can we scale this? Company's too small. Oh, maybe we'll just buy the company, right? And or find out what we can do to scale it, right? So that's So the question is it's not a simple question, right? It requires some real thought leadership in how you want to execute this.
Right. Great. Fascinating. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So we are at about time. Any parting message to the audience? If someone wants to get in touch with you, how do they approach you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, I mean, you can always get in touch with LinkedIn, but you can also send me directly an email. No issue with that. I would say don't boil the ocean, right? That's why this digital transformation or digital twin, they've been overused, right? These words, and it's really critical that you have some definition in house of your data architecture. This is an important part. You need to have data governance in place, and go talk to your business, define the business case clearly, and then go execute, do a use case, and demonstrate to the executive leadership team that you have the capabilities to do these things, and whet the appetite, and ask them to, okay, how can we scale this in the organization, and then have those discussions. That would be my parting message here.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much, Constantyn, for spending your valuable time with us and giving nuggets from your experience. Thanks a lot. And audience, thank you for participating. Those who are interested, you can request a recording of this session. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.